Do you recall the delight you felt as a child entering a Toys R Us store? The never-ending rows of vibrant toys, the excitement of discovering your preferred action figure or doll, and the enchanted impression of a place set just for children? For decades, Toys R Us was more than simply a store. It was a utopia that made millions of people worldwide happy. But now that delight resides just in recollections. How could a brand so cherished and famous, one that dominated the toy business for decades, have such a precipitous fall? For this massive retailer, what went wrong? Let's explore Toys R Us's narrative and the lessons buried in its ascent and fall. The ascendancy of a retail empire. Charles Lazarus started a modest baby furniture store in 1948, but it wasn't until the 1950s that Toys R Us moved into the toy business. Driven by the baby boom, Lazarus saw the huge need for toys in post-war America and developed a superstore idea just focused on toys. Toys R Us stood out from smaller rivals and transformed the retail sector with this creative category killer concept, whereby one store provided an extensive range of toys, opening hundreds of stores all around and becoming a cultural symbol for both parents and children. Toys R Us was the main player in the global toy business by the 1980s. Toys R's popularity came from not only its large assortment, but also from its capacity to provide an interesting shopping experience. Driven by unforgettable advertising campaigns and its iconic mascot, Geoffrey the Giraffe, the brand grew to be associated with youthful happiness. Comprising more than 1,500 outlets and unparalleled market supremacy, the corporation was a multi-billion-dollar behemoth. By the 1990s, Toys R Us was more than simply a store during its height. It was a place that millions of people's imagination was caught. But even during its ascent, flaws in its basis started to show themselves. The corporation mostly depends on its large store model and is slower to adopt innovation, which would eventually help to bring it down. Inability to change with e-commerce. Toys R Us battled to keep up with the fast changes as e-commerce started to transform the retail scene in the early 2000s. The company signed a contract with Amazon in 2000 instead of developing its own strong online presence. Amazon became the sole online retailer of Toys R Us goods. Originally helping Toys R Us establish an internet presence, this alliance soon turned into a strategic error. Amazon seized the chance to grow its inventory and pick up the nuances of the toy market. Amazon had already become a significant rival in the toy industry by the time the alliance broke up in 2006 owing to legal conflicts, enabling Toys R's to catch up. Toys R's suffered greatly from the delay in creating their own e-commerce platform. Established online stores like Amazon and Walmart, who had already taken a sizable chunk of the industry, were fiercely competitive by the time the firm made investments in its digital presence. Toys R Us also neglected to smoothly combine its online and in-store experiences, which annoyed consumers looking for competitive prices and convenience. Toys R's reliance on its physical stores meant that it missed the chance to completely profit from the digital revolution, while other stores embraced omni-channel approaches. The company's final collapse turned mostly on this lack of foresight in adjusting to e-commerce changes. Debt's weight, private equity buyout. Toys R's was acquired private in a leveraged buyout run through by Bain Capital, KKR, and Vornado Realty Trust in 2005. Valued at $6.6 billion, the agreement was supposed to enable the business reorganize and set itself for long-term expansion. But the buyout burdened Toys R Us with a shockingly $5 billion in debt. With hundreds of millions of dollars in annual interest on this debt, the company's resources were depleted, and there was no space for investment in vital areas as marketing, technology, and retail improvements. Toys R Us was essentially on a tightrope, where even little income losses may have disastrous results. Toys R's difficulties to compete in a fast-changing retail environment were made worse by debt. Toys R Us was compelled to concentrate on fulfilling its debt obligations, while rivals such as Walmart, Target, and Amazon were inventing and improving their operations. The company got caught in a vicious loop whereby its inability to modernize and enhance consumer experiences further reduced sales, therefore aggravating the debt management difficulties. In the end, the leveraged buyout, which was meant to revive the business, crippled it financially and left Toys R Us unprepared to withstand changing market dynamics and increasing competition. One of the most important elements causing this loan to fall apart became its debt. The evolution of play toys. The conventional toy industry suffered major upheaval as customer tastes changed and technology developed. Youngsters were turning to digital entertainment, including tablets, cell phones, and video games more and more as the new go-to sources of entertainment and interaction. This change lessened the market for tangible toys, especially those that had long been mainstay of Toys R's aisles. Concurrent with this, parents started giving convenience and cost first priority. They chose to buy toys either through online sites like Amazon or on regular shopping visits at big box stores like Target. Dependent mostly on its enormous physical stores, Toys R Us battled to compete in this fast-shifting scene. Toys R's further difficulty came from the emergence of small, specialized toy stores. Companies like Lego and American Girl committed in designing immersive shop experiences that drew devoted consumers and provided distinctive products not found elsewhere. Toys R Us's large and generic assortment started to look less tempting meanwhile, particularly in light of its rivals' competitive price and convenience policies. Toys R's inability to pivot and handle these industry changes left them subject to the changing tastes redefining the toy market and progressively estranged from its consumers. Ignoring the experience of found in store, once hailed as a magical haven for kids, Toys R's towering aisles of toys let dreams come true. But the business neglected to upgrade its stores and preserve this sense of amazement over the years. Many Toys R Us's stores felt antiquated and uninspired by the 2000s, more like warehouses than energetic retail venues. Inconsistent aisles, poor displays, and inadequate staff training added to a shopping experience that seemed forced and impersonal. Consumers started to consider the stores as unpleasant when compared to internet buying or rivals providing a superior in-store experience. Toys R Us stayed to its classic approach, while rival stores like Lego and Apple were turning into immersive, interesting spaces. Visiting the stores no longer brought delight for parents and children. As online buying expanded, the absence of creativity in physical stores became a clear drawback. Toys R Us concentrated on keeping its large inventory, neglecting to see that the shopping experience itself had evolved into a crucial component of modern retail success instead of building interactive areas or supporting experiential retail. This disregard of the in-store experience turned off consumers, which greatly added to the company's fall-off. The perfect storm, liquidation in Chapter 11. Toys R Us was ensnared in a perfect storm of problems it could not overcome by 2017. Declining sales and increasing competitiveness, combined with the crushing debt from its 2005 leveraged buyout, made the company bankrupt. Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy in September 2017, seeking to restructure and bounce back after years of failing to fit e-commerce and new retail trends. The financial load became too heavy, though, and the holiday season, a make-or-break event for toy stores, did not provide the boost the business sorely needed. Toys R Us declared early in 2018 that it would close or sell all of its U.S. outlets, therefore ending an era. For the company, as well as for its staff, suppliers, and customers, the bankruptcy and later liquidation were catastrophic. Tens of thousands of jobs were lost when over 800 American retailers closed. Suppliers, especially toy makers depending on Toys R Us as a main distributor, also suffered financially. Consumers, meantime, yearned for a brand that had previously signified happiness in childhood. Serving as a warning about the perils of mismanagement, opposition to change, and failure to satisfy changing requirements of consumers, the liquidation represented the fall of a once dominant retail behemoth.
The rise of discount retailers and price wars. How Walmart and Target crushed Toys R Us for decades. Toys R Us was the undisputed king of the toy industry. With its massive stores, endless aisles, and iconic Geoffrey the Giraffe, it was the ultimate destination for kids and parents alike. But behind the colorful displays and cheerful jingles, a storm was brewing, one that would ultimately bring the retail giant to its knees. The early 1990s marked the golden age of Toys R Us, but it was also the beginning of a retail revolution. Walmart and Target, two discount superstores, had their sights set on the toy market. Unlike Toys R Us, which focused solely on toys, these retailers sold everything from groceries to clothing, giving them an edge in pricing. While Toys R Us relied on high-margin toy sales, Walmart and Target used toys as loss leaders, selling them at razor-thin profits just to bring customers into their stores. Once inside, shoppers would buy more than just toys, boosting overall revenue for these discount giants. By the early 2000s, the war had escalated. Walmart's aggressive pricing strategy made it impossible for Toys R Us to compete. In 2003, Walmart officially overtook Toys R Us as the largest toy seller in the US, a title the toy retailer had held for decades. Parents who once flocked to Toys R Us for Christmas shopping now found better deals at Walmart and Target. Toys R Us tried to fight back by slashing prices and launching its own discount promotions. But there was a problem. Unlike Walmart and Target, which had diverse revenue streams, Toys R Us depended entirely on toys. Every price cut ate into its already thinning profits. Meanwhile, Walmart and Target continued to expand, building stores in small towns and urban centers where Toys R Us had little presence. The final blow came during the Great Recession of 2008. As families struggled financially, they became more price-conscious than ever. Why pay $49.99 for a toy at Toys R Us when Walmart had it for $39.99? With no way to outprice its rivals, Toys R Us fell deeper into financial trouble, eventually filing for bankruptcy in 2017. The once mighty toy empire had been outplayed, outpriced, and outpaced, a victim of an industry it helped create. Marketing and branding missteps. How Toys R Us lost its magic. There was a time when the name Toys R Us sparked pure joy. The iconic jingle, "I don't want to grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid," was more than just an ad. It was a childhood anthem. For decades, its mascot, Jeffrey the Giraffe, was a beloved figure, appearing in commercials, parades, and store events. But as the world changed, Toys R Us failed to change with it. By the early 2000s, traditional advertising was losing its grip. Kids no longer relied on TV commercials to discover new toys. YouTube, social media, and influencer marketing were taking over. Yet Toys R Us stuck to its outdated marketing strategies. While brands like Lego and Mattel partnered with YouTubers and created viral digital campaigns, Toys R Us was still running generic TV ads and print catalogs, failing to engage the new generation of young shoppers. The biggest mistake came in 2013 when Toys R Us attempted a brand refresh with its Come Play With Us campaign. The ads focused on nostalgia, targeting parents rather than the kids who would beg them to visit the store. Meanwhile, rival companies like Walmart, Target, and Amazon were running aggressive digital campaigns, using personalized online ads and influencers to drive sales. By 2015, Toys R Us was lagging in online engagement. The company failed to create strong social media communities, missing out on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Kids, where millions of young consumers were discovering new toys daily. Competitors leveraged unboxing videos, toy reviews, and kid influencers to drive sales, while Toys R Us struggled to remain relevant. By the time the company filed for bankruptcy in 2017, it was clear. Failing to evolve its marketing strategy had been one of its biggest downfalls. Toys R Us didn't just lose a battle in retail, it lost an entire generation of kids who no longer saw it as the ultimate toy paradise. Poor store locations and real estate burdens, the hidden costs that crushed Toys R Us. In the 1990s, Toys R Us was at its peak, with over 1,500 stores worldwide. Its massive warehouse-style locations, typically spanning 30,000 to 50,000 square feet, were strategically placed in suburban shopping centers. For years, this worked in its favor. Parents would take their kids on weekend trips to explore towering aisles filled with the latest toys. But by the early 2000s, this very strategy turned into a liability.
The first warning sign came with the decline of malls and big box retail spaces. As consumer habits changed, foot traffic in these locations dropped significantly. Families no longer spent weekends at sprawling shopping centers. They preferred the convenience of online shopping or one-stop stores like Walmart and Target. Yet Toys R Us was locked into long-term leases, many of which stretched for 10 to 20 years. Unlike competitors who downsized or moved to high-traffic areas, Toys R Us was stuck paying for massive spaces that no longer attracted the same number of customers. Take, for example, the Times Square flagship store in New York City. Opened in 2001, it became an iconic attraction with a 60-foot Ferris wheel inside. But despite its appeal, the store struggled with profitability. By 2015, rising rent costs forced Toys R Us to shut it down, dealing a huge blow to the brand's presence. This wasn't an isolated case. Many stores, locked into outdated locations, became financial burdens rather than profit centers. While competitors like Target modernized their layouts and embraced urban retail models, Toys R Us clung to its big box approach. The result? As sales declined, store closures skyrocketed. By 2018, the company was drowning in real estate costs, unable to adapt to shifting consumer behaviors. This failure to restructure its store footprint ultimately sealed its fate, leading to its liquidation and the end of an era. The holiday gamble, how seasonal sales crushed toys. years. For decades, Toys R Us relied on one crucial season, Christmas. Nearly 40% of its annual revenue came from holiday shopping, making it the retailer's lifeline. But in 2017, this dependency proved fatal. That year, early signs of trouble emerged. Competitors like Amazon, Walmart, and Target launched aggressive Black Friday deals in October, stealing holiday shoppers before Toys R Us even had a chance. Struggling under $5 billion in debt, the company desperately needed a record-breaking season. Instead, sales plummeted. By January 2018, the retailer was out of cash. Banks refused more funding, and in March 2018, Toys R Us announced it would liquidate all 800 U.S. stores, ending a 70-year legacy. The lesson? No company can survive when nearly half its revenue depends on just 2 months of sales, especially in a rapidly changing retail landscape. When we consider Toys R Us' fall, it reminds us strongly that the forces of change affect even the most cherished businesses. The company's demise finally resulted from its inability to embrace technology, change with the times, and create fresh shopping experiences. For many, though, Toys R Us will always have a particular place in their hearts as a reminder of early delight and excitement. Even if the toy behemoth may have collapsed, its narrative teaches companies all over a key lesson. In a world always changing, innovation and consumer attention are not only vital but also absolutely necessary. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales revealing the growth and fall of venerable brands. Which Toy R Us memory are your favorites? Tell us in the space provided below.